His name was William Shakespeare. His father, John Shakespeare, made gloves. Gloves are coverings for your hands, often made of leather. His mother, Mary Arden, came from a family that owned land. Life was simple, but not easy. There were no cars, no electricity, no internet. People worked hard every day just to live. But even as a child, William was different. He loved words. Words were not just sounds to him, they were magic. At school, he studied Latin. Latin is an old language used in ancient Rome. He read stories, poems, and ideas from long ago, and something inside him began to grow. A love for language, a love for stories. But then, life changed. His family did not have much money, so when William was still a teenager, he had to leave school. Can you imagine that? A boy who loved learning, forced to stop studying. Many people would give up, but not William. Even without school, he kept reading, he kept thinking, he kept dreaming. Here is the surprise. Sometimes the strongest learners are not in classrooms. They are the ones who never stop learning, no matter what. Suddenly, at the age of 18, William made a big decision. He got married. Her name was Anne Hathaway. She was older than him, and soon they had children. First, a daughter named Susanna, then twins, Hamnet and Judith. Now William was not just a dreamer. He was a father. He needed money. He needed opportunity. But Stratford was too small, too quiet, too limited. So one day, William made a difficult choice. He left his home. He left his family behind, and he traveled to London. Can you imagine that? A young man walking into a big, unknown city with no connections, no money, only a dream. This is our first signature scene. Picture this: a long, dusty road, a young man walking alone, cold wind blowing, his eyes full of hope and fear. London was very different. It was loud, dirty, crowded, sometimes dangerous. Disease spread quickly. People lived very close together. But London had something special: theaters. Places where stories came alive, where actors performed in front of large crowds, where people laughed, cried, and felt something real. And William, he found his place there. At first, he was nobody. He did small jobs, helping actors, carrying props. Props are objects used in a play, cleaning, watching, learning. But then, slowly, something changed. He began to write. At first, simple stories. But people noticed. They liked his words. They liked how he told stories. They felt something. And in a world full of noise, that feeling was powerful. Here is the surprise. William did not just write stories. He understood people. Their love, their fear, their jealousy. Jealousy means feeling upset when someone has something you want. Their dreams. And because of that, his stories felt real. Soon, more people came to watch his plays. Actors wanted to perform his work. Theaters wanted his scripts. And William Shakespeare was no longer just a dreamer. He was becoming something more. If you're enjoying the story so far, hit like and comment. Do you think William will succeed in London or fail? Type success or fail. But then, William Shakespeare's life began to change faster than ever. His plays became more popular. People talked about them in the streets, in markets, even inside royal courts. And soon, he joined a famous group of actors called the Lord Chamberlain's Men. This was not just any group. It was one of the most important theater companies in London. Later, they would even perform for the king. Can you imagine that? A man who started with nothing, now performing for royalty. Here is the second signature scene. Picture this: a large wooden theater. Crowds of people everywhere. some standing, some sitting, all watching quietly, and on the stage, actors speaking powerful lines, words that make people laugh, words that make people cry. This place was called the Globe Theatre. It was round, open at the top, and built from wood. When it rained, people got wet, but no one left, because the stories were too powerful. And at the center of those stories was William Shakespeare. But then, what made his stories so special? The answer is simple. He wrote about life, real life. He wrote about love and loss, about power and ambition, about choices and consequences. Consequences means results of your actions, and because of that, people saw themselves in his characters. They felt understood. Suddenly, his stories became famous across England. He wrote plays like Romeo and Juliet, a tragic love story between two young people. Tragic means very sad, often ending in death. He wrote Hamlet, about a prince who struggles with difficult decisions. He wrote Macbeth, a story about ambition and power. He wrote A Midsummer Night's Dream, full of magic, love, and confusion. He also wrote comedies. Comedies are stories that make people laugh, and histories. Histories are stories about real kings and events. And something incredible happened. Shakespeare began to change the English language itself. He created new words, new expressions, new ways to describe feelings. Words like lonely, generous, excitement. He did not just use language, he shaped it. Here is the surprise. Every time you speak English today, you are using a little bit of Shakespeare. But then, life was not always happy, even for a great writer. His son Hamnet died when he was still young. This brought deep sadness to William. Grief means a deep feeling of sadness after losing someone, and some people believe this pain influenced his writing, made it deeper, more emotional, more real. Can you imagine that? Turning pain into something beautiful, turning loss into art. As the years passed, Shakespeare became successful. He earned money. He bought property. He invested in theaters. And finally, he returned home, back to Stratford, back to the quiet town where his story began. This is our final emotional scene. An older man, walking slowly through familiar streets. The same river, the same houses, but everything feels different now. He was no longer the poor boy. He was a legend. He spent his final years with his family, living peacefully, reflecting on a life full of stories. William Shakespeare died in 1616. He was 52 years old. But his story did not end. His plays continued. Actors performed them. People read them. His words traveled across countries, across oceans, across time. More than 400 years later, we still read Shakespeare. We still feel his stories. Why? Because he understood something very simple. Human emotions never change. Love is still love. Fear